Well, I just said a little prayer to myself because I hope I can do this fully and properly. When I went backstage this morning and I saw Yeonmi in this beautiful gown, I thought I should have dressed a bit better today. But I'm wearing green trousers in acknowledgement of Ireland, in solidarity with its very long struggle and victory for independence. More widely, though, with the knowledge that in a few days from now, the world will be coming together to remember 25 years since the fall of the Berlin Wall. And also knowing that the first time I saw Yeonmi was on this stage a couple of nights ago at the opening ceremony, and she was carrying the flag of her country, North Korea. And the way that she just paused a little bit so that her friend carrying the South Korean flag could catch up with her, and just for a moment. And just for a moment here in Dublin, which has taught the world so much about home rule, maybe one day your countries can be reunited again. Well, Yeonmi was born in the countryside outside of Pyongyang, and life, of course, is very difficult, as it was and is for millions of people in her country. But life, as her family knew it, came to a complete stop when her father was arrested and sentenced to 17 years in prison. He was a civil servant, but he'd also been running a sideline business in the illegal trade of selling metals across the border to China, gold, silver, and nickel. When he got put into prison, of course, he was classed as a criminal, but then again, so were his family on the outside of those prison walls. In her country, when someone is sent to prison, that marks the next 3 generations. So not only her father and her mother, but her herself, and one day, your children. And of course, with that, it became very, very difficult. Her mother was then interrogated for 3 years, taken away as well. I asked her, where did you live? And she said, with my sister. I said, well, how old is your sister? And she said, well, her sister was 11. So she was 9 years old, her sister was 11, and they survived by going up into the mountains and picking the grass and the flowers for their food. I said, were other people there as well? And they said, yes. And I said, did they help you? And they said, everyone's just trying to survive for themselves. Eventually, 3 years later, her mother was released, and shortly after that, her father managed to bribe himself out of prison because he needed treatment also for his colon cancer. And very shortly afterwards, as a family, and that's beautiful, that there was still immense trust in a society where there was so much distrust, they decided to try and escape. Yeonmi was in hospital having her appendix removed when her sister suddenly disappeared. She had taken that decision with a friend to leave, and they hadn't told anybody. And when she came out, they were so scared, the 3 remaining members of the family, that Yeonmi and her mother then went to try and find her. The journey into China took only a day, but it meant crossing 3 mountains and a frozen river that the whole time they were walking across, they thought would give way at any time. When they got to the other side of the border, they found an ethnic Korean man who told them that their sister had gone on ahead, but he didn't know where she was. Try to go back, but then he said, if you go back, you're going to be arrested. So they made that decision to stay. He then threatened to call the police, and he wanted to rape Yeonmi, and her mother protected her. She said, how could you do this to a 13-year-old girl? And he said, well, they're 11, 12, 13, it's all the same. So to get themselves out of that situation, your mum offered herself, and her mother was raped in front of her. I think it's going to be easier for me than for you. And then you found yourselves outside in China, and your father managed to find his way to you eventually as well. And after that, while you're living in China, your father passed away from his colon cancer. And at 3 a.m. in the middle of the morning one day, you went off to go and bury him. You said you couldn't tell your friends and you couldn't ask for help. I remember what it was like for me last year, so I know how you feel. And you buried him, and after that, you and your mother, and you still haven't found your sister, of course, decided to find your way out. You went to Mongolia, you crossed the Gobi Desert. You were put into prison there for 3 months. You used small knives in front of the Mongolian guards and threatened suicide so that they wouldn't send you back to where you'd come from. And through that, eventually, you found yourselves wearing prison clothes, coming off a plane in South Korea, and I think that was 2009, sorry. And you got to South Korea, and you've managed to catch up with your education in that time. Your mother continues to work in restaurants, washing dishes, to try and find some money so that you can live. And you've started cultivating this activist voice. And I know that it's still a very, very new voice, only in the last couple of months. And I asked you where you learnt your English, and you said that you've been watching all the seasons of Friends. Seasons 1 to 10, you said that you went on YouTube to watch my videos as well. And it was very, very humbling, but I do have to tell you that between Friends and me, you're going to end up with a very wonky accent after a while. So that's probably not a good idea. And I know that on behalf of Kate and David and One Young World, we're so happy and so honored that you could be with us here. I know that the South Korean police have told you that this isn't a good idea for you to come, for you to go anywhere, that they can't protect you, but that you are on the outside right now, and that things are okay. And I also wanted to say on behalf of everybody, because you didn't get a chance to celebrate it properly, but a couple of days ago you turned 21, so happy birthday. So of all the great honors I've been blessed with in my life to be able to do and to be able to be a small part of, I just wanted to ask everybody to welcome you. Thank you. I have to do this because this is not I'm speaking. This is the people who want to tell the world what they want to say. North Korea is an unimaginable country. There is only one channel on TV. There is no internet. We aren't free to sing, say, wear, or think what we want. North Korea is the only country in the world that executes people for making unauthorized international phone calls. North Koreans are being terrorized today. When I was growing up in North Korea, I never saw anything about love stories between men and women.
No books, no songs, no press, no movies about love stories. There is no Romeo and Juliet. Every story was propaganda to brainwashes about the Kim dictators. I was born in 1993, and I was abducted at birth, even before I knew the words freedom or human rights. North Koreans are desperately seeking and dying for freedom at this moment. When I was 9 years old, I saw my friend's mother publicly executed. Her crime, watching a Hollywood movie. Expressing doubt about the greatness of the regime can get 3 generations of a family imprisoned or executed. When I was 4 years old, I was warned by my mother not to even whisper. The birds and mice couldn't hear me. I admitted I thought the North Korean dictator could read my mind. My father died in China after we escaped North Korea. And I had to bury him at 3 a.m. in secret. I was 14 years old. I couldn't even cry. I was afraid to be sent back to North Korea. The day I escaped North Korea, I saw my mother raped. The rapist was a Chinese broker. He targeted me. I was 13 years old. There is a saying in North Korea, women are weak, but mothers are strong. My mother allowed herself to be raped in order to protect me. North Korean refugees, about 300,000, are vulnerable in China. 70% of North Korean women and teenage girls are being victimized, sometimes sold for as little as $200. We walked across the Gobi Desert, following a compass. When they stopped working, we followed the stars to freedom. I felt only the stars were with us. Mongolia was our freedom moment. Death or dignity. Armed with knives, we were prepared to kill ourselves if we were going to be sent back to North Korea. We wanted to live as humans. People often ask me, how can we help North Koreans? There are many ways, but I would like to mention 3 for now. 1, educate yourself so you can raise awareness about human crisis in North Korea. 2, help and support North Korean refugees who are trying to escape to freedom. 3, petition China's stop repatriation. We have to shed a light on the darkest place in the world. It isn't just North Korean human rights. It's our rights that North Korean dictators have violated for 7 decades. We need governments all around the world to put more pressure on China to stop repatriation. In particular, Chinese delegates of One Young World can play a part by speaking up. North Korea is indescribable. No humans deserve to be oppressed just because of their birthplace. We need to focus less on the regime and more on the people who are being forgotten. One Young World, we are the ones who will make them visible. Fellow delegates, please join me as we make this a global movement to free North Koreans. when I was crossing the Gobi Desert, scared of dying. I thought nobody in this world cared. It seemed that only the stars were with me. But you have listened to my story. You have cared. Thank you very much.